joined by Tara McGeehan, President of UK and Australia for CGI. So Tara, welcome. Thanks for joining me at SourcingTV.
Great to be here, Kerry.
No, thank you. So we are going to be talking about all things sustainability today. Obviously, it is a huge agenda item. Sustainability has become one of the four main pillars of the GSA's programme for 2022. So just to set the scene, I'd really be keen to understand what is CGI's approach to the subject of sustainability? What sort of programmes have you got in place at the moment?
I think for me, sustainability is personally, it's a topic that I care deeply about, but corporately, I think in the last couple of years, it's become something that I don't think you can be an ethical business and not have a position on sustainability. And COP26 was a huge event, wasn't it, last year? And it brought to light to me the fact that we as an industry have a big role to play as companies, but also as a sector. So CGI, the firm, we have science-based targets in the UK to get us to net zero by 2026. And globally, we've got targets for 2030. So very, very proud that we're leading the way from a CGI point of view. And what that actually means is top down and bottom up. We've set targets for each of the business units, and they have like a carbon target, like they have a financial target, and they have to report every month on how they're doing. And the Science-Based Target Institute's helped us with that by getting accredited. We know about scope 1, 2, and 3, and we're measuring not just only our buildings and reusable power and what have you, but we're also looking at our travel from a business point of view, and we're also looking at our personal obligations. So we've just rolled out an app to all the folks who work for us called Paw Print, where we've all got our own personal paw prints that measure our carbon footprints as individuals, and we've got little league tables so that we can all compete with each other to see if we can improve things. So we're trying it in all ways. I've got a group called the No Planet B group, who are all made from for our staff. We call them members because we're all shareholders. Our members run that group, and I've given them a budget, and they're all interested in how we can improve our offices, get rid of like single-use plastics, encourage carpooling and all those sort of things. So we're tackling it top down through science-based targets and bottom up through our No Planet B aspirations, and it does actually meet in the middle, I think. So I think as a company we're doing that, and then as an industry there's loads we can do, isn't there? Technology is really in the middle of making this stuff happen. So I think the tech sector has a huge role to play, but you only get to play if you're really doing your own part as a firm in the first place. So I think, get your own house in order would be my advice to anybody, and then have a think about what technology can do to, look at smart cities, for example, or, help with the electricity network and how you can make that more efficient, etc. There's loads and loads of ways that technology can lean in and help.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. That's a really ambitious target. That's kind of ahead of the game for, I think, most of the players in the industry. Is that because you're already in a fairly good position because you've been doing this program for a sustainable period of time? Yeah. Or are you just really ambitious?
Been a little bit of both, Kerry. So we have been doing it for a little while, for a couple of years. So we do start with a good baseline. I think the pandemic has shown us all that you don't necessarily need to make all the trips that you were making before the pandemic. And from that point of view, we are organising more of a hybrid working life. That means that the business travel side of things has come down and should stay down. I think it'll bounce up a little bit more post-pandemic, but it's not back to where we were beforehand at all, to be honest with you. And then I think you should challenge yourself. This isn't something to mess around at. I think this is something that, the planet needs us all to take ambitious targets and hit them rather than come up with reasons not to do it. So, leading from the front, I think we should all say, right, well, let's shoot for a target that's slightly uncomfortable, and then let's all think of ways in which we can get there. And my staff respond to that approach very well. So put the peg in the sand, and then everybody comes up with ideas and ways that we can get there. And we are on track at the moment, and we publish our results on our website, so you can see how we're doing. We talk to our clients about it as well, because it's important that we let them know what the impact on a project will be from a carbon point of view. So we're measuring that now and giving bids to carbon footprints as well, and talking about what the impact on the planet is of not just what we do, but what we are doing for others and how that will impact as well. So it's changed our mindset. I think sustainability is everything we do now. I think sustainable has to be at the front, at the boardroom, but absolutely in every part of the business. So, I don't know where your head is on it, but for me, I don't think it's a choice thing now. It's just how quickly can you do this and how can you codify it?
Yeah. Well, I've got so many questions rattling through my mind. Let's see if I can get these out. So first of all, obviously CGI is a huge global player.
Mhm.
Do you think your targets globally mirroring what the targets are for each of the countries? So for example, obviously we know that India is going to be hitting their targets much further down the line than lots of countries. Is that the same sort of like mirroring for you?
So it's a good question. And no, CGI has actually said 2030 is our target for all our geography, regardless of where you are. So you can go earlier if you like, but no one's being encouraged to go later. So our Indian team are fantastic and they're really on it. And, you know, they work very closely with the UK team, actually. And we're coming up with lots of plans and schemes to help them get to their 2030 target. Obviously, Australia, for me, they traditionally are a little less on the front foot on this topic, but my team are striving for, well, I'm letting them go with the 2030 target, but I'm pulling them into the 2026 as well, to be honest with you. So, you know, I think we need to all challenge ourselves, and CGI has said 2030s for the globe, you know, so let's show me your plans, let's measure it. And I can't give credit enough to the Science Based Target Institute, who are very, very good people at helping you come up with a consistent methodology for doing this, so you don't have to make it up and you don't go down that greenwashing world where people are making things that aren't really true as obligations. So, you know, I think good targets, recognize industry, and then push like crazy to get it done. And
really good sharing. Are you finding, have you got some sort of central platform that you're using for sharing all the ideas from different teams around the world?
We do share. We have a committee that meets on a monthly basis that's chaired by our CFO, and that group talks about what we're all up to and initiatives, etc. And you know, there's no one answer on this topic because it's so new, isn't it? So people are trying different things in different parts of the world and then reporting back into the centre, and you know, pushing on from there. I mean, in the UK, we're not only signatories to get to net zero by 2026, but we're also big fans of DEFRA's Nature Positive program. So we want to be net zero nature positive, and as a result of it, we are looking to put more wildflowers into get rid of all that bland grass around our offices and change it up to being with wildflowers. And we're looking at bees, actually, and you know, we're doing stuff to try and have a better impact on the world that we live in as well. And you know, thinking about planting flowers and having ponds and bringing wildlife back into our office environments for the good of everybody, really, but mostly for nature.
Yeah, that's all fantastic, and that's equally happening all around. That's happening in London as well as it's happening.
Yeah, it's different in every office, but still valid in every office. So we're looking at green walls and roofing. We're looking at, you know, plants in the offices to improve the environment for our folks that are working there. We're looking at beehives. You can put them on the roofs of any buildings, you know. So we're looking to see what works where, and where we've got a bigger space, like in Reading, for example. We're in the green part there. We're looking at getting a quite significant stream of just bee-friendly flowers planted all around the office, and the landlords down there are very interested in taking that across the whole area. So that's quite an exciting project.
Yeah, fantastic. So you mentioned sort of like, you know, clients, you're now putting it into some of your tenders. How much are you seeing change from the client perspective in terms of, is that consistently happening, that they're looking at sustainability metrics and awarding points for sustainability within their tenders now?
So you know that government has mandated it, and it's something referred to as social value. So we get measured on social value for all our government tenders, and half of my business is with the government in one way or another, be it local, central, MOD, etc. So we are formally being measured by the public sector, but the private sector is starting to ask these questions as well, actually. Less formally at the moment, but I see it as just a matter of time, really. So there is a share of scores on not just money anymore. You know, money matters, but doesn't really matter that much if there's no planet. So I think that, you know, we do need to weight the response and think, you know, is the solution I'm putting in ethical, you know? So yeah, I'm seeing it more in the private sector. I say it's slightly behind, but not that much behind, to be honest with you.
Right, okay, great. So it's 10% from the public sector at the moment, isn't it?
But how they represent it is different in each bid, actually. So because it's social values, some are more heavy, some departments of the government are more leaning on the environment, others are more on social responsibility. So, you know, in the justice sector, for example, there's quite an emphasis on giving people out of prison opportunities for work, etc. So that, you know, there may be more scores in that space, whereas others are more around helping kids out with STEM camps and that type of thing. So it depends on which bit of government as to how the points are allocated, but there's always some to do with the environment there.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So I think, you know, obviously ESG huge up the corporate agenda, and I think if we look now at our industry, I think, you know, we've been fairly good at environmental. We're not like the chemical industry and things like that, so we don't have quite so much waste produce. But obviously, we've got to look at things like data centres and make them as green as possible, and travel budgets and all those things, travel and all those things that you've mentioned. And then the G piece, I think we've always been particularly good at, because we've always been about governing the relationships that we've got between our major buyers and service providers. It's the S piece that I don't think we've been quite so good at. And I think as a people-related industry, a predominantly people-related industry, we really need to be looking at those social aspects a lot more. So I'd be keen to understand what you're doing at CGI on the S piece.
From a social point of view, we do. We obviously have a problem as an industry with loads and loads of vacancies and not enough people coming into the sector. So we've managed to link the social side with the practicalities of the fact that we need to recruit more people, and just always recruiting from the same universities isn't the answer anymore. So we joined forces with a group called Fast Futures, who give opportunities to kids who haven't necessarily had the easiest start for lots of different reasons. And we are taking active part in mentoring through, it's a 12-week digital course. My members are taking part in mentoring and helping people practice for interviews, write their CVs and what have you. And we're also giving some of the modules around what it means in cybersecurity and digital and what have you. So we're actively involved in those cohorts, and hundreds of people are going through that. But then we're actually recruiting out the end as well. So we're just taking our first 14 or 15 people from a group who will all become data scientists eventually, and data analysts, etc. So yeah, so we found a way of and these people are amazing, you know. So there's such a fantastic talent pool to look at. So we're finding fabulous people who are super keen, and then helping them, just give them a little nudge to get them to understand that the tech sector is a really cool place to work. And that's the bit that we're missing sometimes. So we do some of that. We obviously we have a need to bring our women back to work when they choose to go and have families and maybe step out for a few years. So we have quite good policies on part-time working and encouraging people to keep their skills and training up to date whilst they're having maybe a career break for a couple of years. We still, the women of CGI still get help with their training, and if they come back in, they get help back in a way that it's the workplace, that means that they can balance what is a very difficult time for them from a family and a work point of view. So we try and keep from that point of view our workers with us that we've got, and we try and bring in new people, and then we feel that we have a responsibility to the kids who maybe at school don't have the tech equipment that they should have. So we give all our old laptops to a charity who re-give them to poorer schools. And as a tech company, we refresh our gear every 3 years, so our laptops are pretty good actually. So we found a way of stripping them down and giving them to poorer schools who need them, you know. And then we're actively involved in a number of big programs in Scotland, in Glasgow and Edinburgh and the borders, to give iPads to every child in school. So as part of running those managed services, there's savings there, and the councils have taken those savings and invested it in kit and programs of work that we're helping deliver. So we're trying to plan long here, Kerry, really. So in 10 or 15 years' time, these people might remember that we were a good firm and will come and work for us. And then in the shorter term, the Fast Futures people, we're so pleased that we're getting a bunch of them come work for us, and hoping that relationship will run and grow over the next few years. And it genuinely is a place that if other tech firms want good quality people, they should just think bigger than the traditional routes. The traditional routes are great, but they're not enough anymore, are they? So, being creative, I think, is my answer. Try and encourage more people into what is a very interesting, well-paid sector.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are launching our Emerging Talent Forum and our Ambassadors Programme, and that's involving bringing a community of industry experienced practitioners that are willing to go out to the universities and to the schools and just sort of say, this has been my profession, this has been my career today, this is why you should be looking at a career in some part of sourcing, so whether it's delivery of technology or customer services, or whether it's actually in managing those relationships. So putting you on the spot here, but would you be willing to be one of our ambassadors and do one slot at one university for us?
Yeah, of course I would. I'd be delighted. I'm always thrilled to help, and if we could just have one extra person want to join our world, then it's a time well spent for me. And especially encouraging women into the tech sector as well, because sometimes it's felt that it's not for us, and yet here we are, Kerry, sitting here with quite biggish jobs in the tech sector. So it is for everybody. I think maybe sometimes we don't talk about what the jobs are that you can do, and you don't all have to be coding. There's lots of jobs in the tech sector, and you can find one that suits you. It would be creative, or if you write, or if you want to do coding, there's something for everybody, I think. And as a group, I don't think we spent enough time explaining all the fabulous jobs that are available. So yeah, absolutely count me in, and I'm sure I'll count my wider team in as well. We're all big talkers on this topic.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Right. So now to the really, really big question is, CGI is absolutely leading by example here, but we do need to ensure that we're doing this industry wide. What are your suggestions and ideas or thoughts on what we should do as an industry to collaborate better and drive the sustainability agenda forward?
Yeah, I totally agree with you that collaboration is the key here. This isn't about competitive advantage. This is about doing the right thing in our area and getting our house in order. So I think groups and yourselves, you're in the perfect position to bring companies together, and we should be open to sharing just top tips and ways in which we've kicked off and tackled this journey. And certainly from my point of view, I'm a couple of years down the journey and have made a few mistakes. So more than happy to talk about don't do that, do this, because this isn't a time for people to be making the same mistakes. We should all just, leap forward and get going. So I think my suggestion would be to find a forum, or for us to group together and share on a portal our ideas, have firms that are doing quite well, maybe even mentor or sponsor smaller or other firms that haven't had the opportunity to think it through, to try and get them on the road quicker. And then, like you're saying, talk about how we've done it, so that people will sit there and think, actually, I need a target. I could do with the Science-Based Institute helping me. I could do with understanding how I measure my carbon footprint. I could do with setting up a group for my members. These are all things now that there are blueprints to do. So you don't have to do the creative thinking. You could do those things quickly and then move on and have original thoughts and then bring those back to the group yourself. So I think this is definitely not one for competitive advantage. This is one for the good of us all. And, therefore we're open to sharing anything we've got. I think it's just so important that everybody puts it at the top of their agenda and accepts that it's a today thing, not a tomorrow thing.
Yeah. Great. So what we're doing is we're actually having a roundtable discussion. What we've noticed is that all of our enterprise buyers are now scrabbling and writing questionnaires that they're pushing out to all of their tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 service providers, asking them for all sorts of information sets. And I don't know whether you feel this pain, but I know the service providers are now having to respond to all of their customers. And it just seems that there's hundreds of questionnaires being filled in all over the place. And most of them are fairly similar. But everybody's reinventing wheels. So speaking to our enterprise buyers, they have actually sort of said, if you could actually create a template questionnaire that makes sense for the industry that we could use across all of our service providers. And our service providers have equally said, yeah, if we could just fill it in once and share that information, that would be great. So we're looking at the opportunity of either creating a service provider sustainability maturity standard, or even going further and actually creating a service provider sustainability maturity index. Obviously working with one of the professional accrediting bodies that are actually out there. And as I said before, because we are a services-led, people-led industry, we were looking at softer metrics. So we were looking at how well organisations were performing with responsible automation, whether they were looking at reskilling those people that are going to be displaced through automation. So, for example, accountants being reskilled as data analysts, and like-minded skill sets. But also look at inclusion and diversity in those organisations, including their own supply chain diversity, and also looking at things like housing. Yep. So, do you think those are important aspects that should be included within sustainability programs of?
I think for sure go with the sustainability part first, because it's reasonably well boxed in terms of questions that are asked, and our procurement people are adding to the pain of your members by asking them endlessly and then getting the results back. So it is quite a well-trodden path, I think, and you're absolutely right. If we had, if you guys could accredit someone and say this is their response and almost give them like a kite mark to say that this is, where they score from a sustainability point of view, it would save a lot of time for us asking and chasing and for them filling in endlessly similar but not the same questionnaires. So I think definitely get to there. And then I'm loving the idea of winding in the other things as well, because, ultimately we all want to work with the sort of firms that we want to work with. So knowing that they have a focus on their community, on doing the right thing by their diversity and inclusion, and that those things are important. I'd even add in modern day slavery there as well. There's quite a bit written, and we all submit thoughtful papers on that every year. But knowing that our supply chain are doing the same as well are things that you could, if you loaded all of that into there, then you'd have a very powerful resource that would be very popular, I'm sure. So, we'd certainly help you with that, because you're right, it feels like we are asking the same thing many, many times of organisations that perhaps haven't got the bandwidth to be responding as much as they're having to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's great. Okay, I'm counting you in for so many.
Yeah, I'm in for that as well, yeah.
Right, so last question for me, and that was, you said you had made mistakes on your way. So just wondering, what are your top tips for any organisation of any size that is really looking at improving their own sustainability metrics in a short period of time?
I think it's about getting your baseline right to start off with. So finding out how you measure what your carbon consumption is now, and spending, and there's lots written on it now. When we started it, there was less written on it, and we made some assumptions that proved to be incorrect, and had to rework it, etc. And then coming up with, because we're tech people, aren't we, coming up with a sustainable way of creating the baseline and adding to it so that we could measure it without having a little army of people having to do loads of maths every time we wanted to have a look at it, and taking a feed from our travel system, for example, so that the journey could be converted into the carbon impact easily and then added into the business unit it applied to, etc. All that stuff needed thinking through for us, and maybe I pushed the team too quickly to get the answer too quickly. So my top tip, I think, is get your baseline right, so that you know that what you're measuring against is real, and that you're not having to keep justifying all the time because the baseline wasn't accurate. So, but again, the Science Based Target Institute, who are excellent, they've got lots written on that and lots of people that can help. And interestingly, we've even got a whole advisory practice out of the back of this now, because we've done it and we revised ourselves and now advise our clients as well, just because it seems a quicker way of getting people on up and running without making the similar mistakes. So I think the whole industry will grow up around this, which isn't a bad thing in itself, because it's it's consultancy for good, isn't it? And having a advisory practice that means that you only spend a couple of hours thinking something through that might take you personally a few weeks to do if you didn't have all of that knowledge and all those templates, feels like a useful thing for us out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that speeds up the improvements. Yeah. Got to be a good thing. So Tara, thank you so much for joining me today, and congratulations to CGI for the results you've achieved so far, but for setting the bar for the industry with really impressive metrics. So
you're very kind. Thank you. And any help you need, we're here. We think you guys do fabulous work. So any help we can do to support you, you can count on us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.